Alright, time to apply for Hitman School. Let's do it. William Gilliams. You might have come across this before if you have a name with a special character in it. And if you're not one of those people, then kudos. But before you think of leaving because this doesn't apply to you, I will make it worth your time. I do have some important things to discuss regarding things like naming conventions, trends, controversies, and why some applications force you to put something other than your real name. But what is a real name anyway? In order to understand it, we need to take a look at parallel universes. Okay, jokes aside, what is a real name anyway? Let's say your name is Naomi and you've had that name for 20 years, but you've encountered a point in your life where you decided to officially change it to Scarlett. Well, there are tons of ways you can do that. You can go to court and sign a petition so they can start the process if you really want it to be official, or you can simply have everyone refer to you under a different name. Just because it was on a piece of paper and you were born and you were legally obligated to put that exact spelling of your name on important government documents doesn't mean it's tied to your heart and soul, does it? Now Naomi, who is now Scarlett, never got her name changed by the court, but knows that Scarlett is what she feels her name truly is, so anyone who calls her Naomi will be corrected. But you have some people who feel that unless she gets it changed in court, her new name isn't her official name. So one of these has to be invalid, right? Or can they both be valid? Here's another example. Let's talk about someone named Montrell, who decided to just go with the name Monty. It is his nickname after all. In fact, it started out as something people closest to him would call him, but now pretty much everyone does. So Monty may be a nickname, but it can be as valid as any other name. I mean, it's not like there's a magical spell that forbids anyone from going with an alternative name unless they sign the scroll of permanence. In other words, court papers. A name can be changed at any time. Of course, if there was someone you know who said they were going by a completely new name starting today, you would most likely react bewildered at first. I mean, you've known this person your whole life, and there doesn't really seem to be a reason why they'd get a name change. In fact, you ask them why they would get a name change, and they respond, "No particular reason, I just prefer this one because it fits me." You decide you'll get used to it, but ultimately you can't shake the feeling that this new name, new identity feels a little invalid. And that's where I feel the rules behind the validity of names can be a little finicky. So let's explore how finicky they can be by diving into the first part, naming conventions. For example, in some Asian countries like Vietnam, some families may give the same middle name to all individuals of the same gender across generations. Meanwhile, other Asian cultures don't have middle names at all. The concept of having a middle name is a naming convention itself. Ancient Roman cultures had cognomen, which was basically just a third name, most of which originally only belonged to the patrician families to distinguish themselves from the common folk name-wise, or as they originally were known as, plebeians. Romans using names to indicate class was also a naming convention. In America, while it isn't required, it is common for the wife to take the husband's surname when they wed. But not all countries do this. In Greece, Malaysia, France, Chile, the Netherlands, Spain, Belgium, and Korea, it's a norm for women to keep their maiden name. And while there's nothing stopping them from taking their husband's surname, it is a foreign concept. Additionally, some people decide to forego traditional naming conventions and combine surnames. Okay, so many countries traditionally use naming conventions. Are there any that don't care about that sort of thing? I guess there are rare exceptions. Japan seems to be the only country in the world that requires married couples to have the same surname. Any deviation is against the law. Then you have fathers worldwide who give their own name to their son, and that too is a naming convention. If your name is Junior or Trey, then you can relate to this. Having all of your children have their first name start with the same letter is another example. Let's say this man had 2 kids, right? One named Mason and one named Madaughter. Do you see the connection there? That's right, both names start with the letter M. Naming conventions aren't a good or a bad thing, but I can kind of understand how it can cause confusion sometimes. Did you know purposely giving your child a confusing name can also be a naming convention? Take Ewan, for example.
Come on. Hold up. That's what I'm talking about. Nice.
Looks like you win.
Yeah, my name is Ewan, of course.
No, I mean you win. Man, don't rub it in my face. You should meet my long-lost cousin. You lose. He looks a lot like you. Oh, shut up, Ewan. I'll have one of my comebacks these days.
I'm just messing with you, XX_Supreme Blade_XX.
My parents were gamers. Clearly their genes didn't get passed down. Alright, let me give you a personal example. So, a naming convention tradition the mother's side of my family does is we have the initials of our first, middle, and last name spell out a word. For example, a person with the name Charles Emile Thompson would have their name spelled out, you guessed it, Faf. It's a cute little thing that I'm personally familiar with, but all those examples pretty much solidify that naming conventions are everywhere. You have to be real creative to come up with something that doesn't fall into a naming convention category. I mean, you could do something crazy and name your kid Macaroni or something. No one's ever done that before. I think that would be considered unorthodox enough. Oh wait, never mind, it's already taken. Yes, that is right. Someone named Macaroni does exist. And while his name is directly based off the cherished pasta type, most people, after being stuck in disbelief for a few minutes, would scoff his name as, well, Invalid. He can't possibly be named that, right? It has to be a joke. And yeah, as downright silly as it is, his name is by all means valid. Of course, what I mentioned is an extreme case, but now you see how this can challenge the validity of what a person's name is, or what the rules for names are. So whether or not you care about naming conventions is very common, and it's everywhere. Considering my name is the only one in the world, I can't say I'm in the same boat. You curious as to what my name is? Well, you'll find that out later. Maria and Mohammed are among the most popular names in the entire world. In fact, Mohammed is so dominant that its many variations sit at the very top of the charts. Of course, population disparity contributes to this, with India being huge, but that doesn't matter. Some people rely on statistics like a list of the most common names in their country and simply name their child based off that. And then you have others who go by unisex names to be on the safer side regarding their child's personality, like considering a tomboyish girl. Or they can choose one with an easy nickname potential, since that's what a lot of other parents are doing. Like Jack, for example. Maybe they just want a nice and easy name with no hiccups. One that rolls off the tongue so they don't have to worry about predicaments like the one that I'm in. The name you got is probably a product of these trends. Your name may have even been chosen based off your skin color. That's why you got things like black names or white names. Like, you've never seen a white guy named Tyrone. Oh. Huh. I didn't expect he'd look like that, but okay. Okay, but it's not typical. I'm sure if you ask everyone whether Tyrone was a black name, a white name, or neither, an overwhelming majority would tell you that Tyrone is a black name. But it never started that way. It actually began as an Irish name, believe it or not. It was pronounced... I'm sorry, Irish translator, can you help me out?
Tyrone.
Thanks. So, black people didn't even become familiar with the name until the early 1900s, when two particular men became mainstream in America, Tyrone Power and Tyrone Davis. Tyrone Davis was a famous singer who put his focus into soul music, which was something the African-American community gravitated towards heavily. Not only was his music good enough to top the charts, but he made a song called Writing on the Wall, where he sang about Pan-African unity and Malcolm X. And this was written during the 1900s, and we all know how black people were treated back then. Any song that represented and uplifted the black community was gold. Not to mention, his music is fire emojis. I actually recommend you listen to his song Turn Back the Hands of Time. It's his most popular song, and for good reason. So it was only a matter of time before Tyrone deeply penetrated the black community. Now Tyrone Power, he was a famous and talented Irish-American actor who played many roles around that time, and he was born before Tyrone Davis. Had Tyrone Power not been well known in the States, the parents of Tyrone Davis would have looked elsewhere for inspiration for their baby's name. And that's how the trend for this particular name took off, and it looks like it's here to stay for a while. And that's just one example of how naming trends can be formed. You never saw anyone with the name Ariel back then until the movie Little Mermaid came out. On the other side of things, it's common for parents to go for things like either an atypical name or a name that means or references something grand, or common names but with a twist, that twist being that it's spelled uniquely. Oh, no, my name's not David, it's David. And this applies to my name. When my parents agreed on my name, they based it on a common name, but gave it the attribute of atypical spelling, specifically one with a special character. And we'll get into the special characters bit in a sec, but more and more people nowadays are embracing novelty. The more unique and out there your child's name is, the more special they are. Or something. Some people just want more out of their name, and I get it. It's most likely going to stick with you for the rest of your life, so why not make it special? Whether you rely on your own creative capabilities or on outside influences, doesn't really matter. An article from 2019 mentions a report made by a team of researchers who discovered that when a name suddenly becomes popular, it might be related to the phonemes of previous hit names. Imagine that in the year 2000, some of the most popular names begin with the hard K sound, like Carl or Katie, while other popular names end with an N sound, like Darren and Warren. In the following years, parents are statistically more likely to prefer names that combine those sounds, like Karen. The fact that many people steer away from naming their kid Karen because they don't want their child to be associated with that meme is a trend as well. I don't think there's anything wrong with naming trends at all, but it could just bite you in the butt sometimes. And no one likes getting bit in the butt. Except for the people who do. I'm sure there's a kink for it somewhere. A kink that I have. Look, my name is out there, but at least it's not... Sorry, I mispronounced that. I meant to say Albin. Swedish parents Elizabeth and Lasse gave Albin his name in 1991, but they never got around to registering his name. So by the time his 5th birthday came around, the parents were sent a notice that they would be charged a fine for failing to register his name. So, in retaliation, they sent, this. The parents suggested it was a pregnant, expressionistic development that we see as an artistic creation. I find that brilliant. This was essentially them saying "fuck off" and I love it. Unfortunately, they had to pay the fine anyway, but this did bring up discussions on the validity of Albin's name. Even when under the veil of what looks like broken code, it doesn't take away Albin's individuality, nor does it take away from what his name is supposed to be. Obviously, there's a reason why laws demand you register your name and make you jump through hoops to get it changed. I can understand why they want to put names in their own places and categories. I mean, it just makes things harder to deal with if you can change your name on a whim. And besides, having to say doesn't sound very pleasant when you gotta sing the birthday song. You know, I lost a spelling bee in middle school because they told me to spell the word Albin. 11116. Albin. Ooh, sorry. You missed one L. But, because I'm so nice, I'm going to give it to you. Because you lost. 6th place. But there are only 4 other people competing. 7th place. That's not the only example of creative and interesting names. I'm talking more creative than Mercy or Standfast? Who comes up with this stuff, man? I named my son Second Amendment. I tell him you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. He's a good boy. He's a policeman. No, I'm talking about something different. Something especially egregious. Here is a list of names that you are not allowed to have in the US. And here is a kid who was named Adolf Hitler. In 2001, Isadore and Bethany Campbell decided it would be a fitting name for their boy. And I mean, if it wasn't obvious enough, these people were straight up white supremacists and neo-Nazis. The kid made the headlines when the father complained about a supermarket refusing to put his son's name on a cake. When the authority caught wind of this, they took custody of the boy. Rightfully so. People like those two don't deserve to be parents. But I can't help but feel bad for the kid. Let's just hope he didn't grow up to be like his father. This sickening name ended up being tied to his identity whether he liked it or not. But does that make his name invalid though? Well, if you ask me, and I'm pretty sure most people would have the same answer, but yes. But I think it's more of a matter of either answering with emotion or logic rather than a concrete yes or no answer, so that's up to you. But if you were to type that into a forum, you might find that it accepts the name. The systems in place that reinforce the rules that help us determine whether names are invalid or not seem to be finicky themselves. Maybe your name isn't controversial, but because over time you find out that the person who gave it to you is a horrible person, and you decide to change it to avoid being associated with like any trauma or a bad identity. Does that then make your name invalid to you? What's valid to you may be invalid elsewhere. Unless your name is Chief Maximus. That's always valid. I want to talk about a personal experience with my name and why it made me think about making this video. Now I go by Kiddo, but my actual name is Kyle. That's right, 4 characters, 3 letters, 2 syllables. A lot of people who are unfamiliar with my name, which is pretty much everyone when they first meet me, default to Kyle. If I were to go to certain countries, I would never be referred to as Kyle. Only what the country could come up with that's closest to my name. Kinda like this pesky form here. It's as if I'm not speaking its language. Like, it knows what my name actually is, but can't speak it unless it says it in its own way. For example, I've noticed that most Hispanic people have trouble with my name, so they say my name like Caillou. And just like Caillou, I also enjoy a bit of tax evasion. Or they'll call me Kyle, which I don't like, so I just tell them to call me K. Just the letter K. And that remains my name to them. A fun little mnemonic I have is, my name is Kyle. It's like Kyle, but with more style. And no offense to anyone named Kyle watching this, of course. I just gotta do what I gotta do to differentiate myself, you know what I'm saying? A king doesn't go around being nice and telling his commoners, I'm just like you guys, for real. I really gotta stop making enemies out of guys named Kyle. The way Hispanic people pronounce their L's and their R's are based on different rules than in English speakers, so when they get to the second vowel, they can't say it correctly without feeling like they're being forced out of their comfort zone. It's as if they encountered a system error. Now I want to travel the world. The place I'm most excited about visiting is Japan. I not only want to travel to Japan, but I also want to do business there in the future. There's just one problem. While I was doing my research on the different districts to tour, I decided, out of curiosity, how my name would be pronounced there since they pronounce things way differently than we do in America. I typed in my name and nothing happened. Makes sense. So I typed Kyle to get a close estimate, and I got
Kyle.
That sounds pretty cool, but going off how my name is pronounced, I figured it would be Kairu. Kyle. Kairu. And then I looked up Kairu and saw this. It means to go home. So if somebody were to use my name the correct way, it would be awkward because it already belongs to a verb, which means, once again, I have to default to Kyle.
Kyle.
Yes, thanks. And I'm sure problems like this would persist the more I visit different countries, just because of this one little special character. This tiny thing is serving as a wrench in the cog of the language translation machines. But I would never change my name for the world. I genuinely feel like it's a crucial part of me. If my name were changed, then I wouldn't feel like myself anymore. But is it really that big of a deal? Like, does your name actually play some role in shaping you as an individual? Does it really influence your personality in any way? Would your life be different if you were named Theodore? Perhaps you'd be a singer. Maybe you would find animals more endearing than you do now, specifically chipmunks. What kind of person would you be if your name was Simon? I don't think it affects your personality in a significant way, though I do agree with this statement made by a website based on a recent study they discovered. Our names have the potential to influence our behavior, physical appearance, career path and life choices, popularity, and how others perceive us. I also found a site that said, what a child is named is surely likely to influence how they are perceived by others and treated by others, and how they therefore come to see and present themselves. It makes me think, if your name is Gertrude, would it contribute to you having low self-esteem? Because looking online, you'll find that a popular reaction to this name is a negative one. To make things a little more complicated, you have endonyms and exonyms. An endonym is a native name of a geographical feature and is used by the local community, whereas an exonym is a foreign name of the geographical feature and is used by an external community. Let me show you this flag. Which country does this flag belong to? Now you might respond, Japan. That's what we call it. The citizens who actually live there call it Nihon. Every place you can think of has its own endonym. We just create exonyms to make things more comprehensible for us. This goes for people's names as well. Remember what I said about going to Japan and finding out that they pronounce Kyle like
Kyle.
That would be their exonym. My name technically has an exonym, but once again it means to go home. And I don't know about you, but I would find it pretty offensive to be told to go home all the time if I were in a foreign country. And then you have things like pseudonyms / aliases where they go by an alternate name and like eventually it becomes such a strong part of their identity that it basically becomes their new name. And don't even get me started on the list of celebrities who go by names they didn't start with. Did you know that Jamie Foxx isn't even his real name? It's Eric! Though, I bet you he would respond to anyone calling him by a pseudonym equally as fast as he would his original name. Same go for people like Mark Twain or Eric Arthur Blair. Well, you can't really expect a response from the latter two, you know, because they're dead. Sometimes your name can do everything right and it still gets used wrong, like how Americans pronounce Juan like Juan. They don't go through the effort of starting off with the H sound because the way we speak favors streamlined, easy, or even lazy speaking. Saying Juan the right way is out of the comfort zone of our diction. And in my name's case, Kyle, I deal with a similar problem. And while so unconventional there's none other with a name, it's really super simple once you know it. But that doesn't stop people from finding ways to screw it up. I've been called Kylie way more times than I'd ever expect. Kylie. Does it look like there's anything past the L? You know what? I'm gonna start introducing myself like that from now on. Hey, what's up guys? It's your boy Kylie. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Kylie here. I'm so glad you joined. Someone in Ireland may have an easy time pronouncing
Trelach.
Can you repeat that for me, please?
Trelach.
I'm sorry, one more time, please.
Trelach.
Right. But in English-speaking American, not so much. And then there are names designed to just f*** everything up. Names that think they can be so cheeky that they can just bend every rule and make everyone accept it while it laughs at them for having difficulties. I'm talking about a name like this. This name is pronounced
Quiver, 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 quiver.
This thing right here is everything it's not supposed to be. Just a heads up, I don't have any issues with this name at all. Obviously, it makes more sense to Irish folk than it does to English folk because it is an Irish name, but I just wanted to point out how funny it was that it basically demolishes English pronunciation rules. Then again, I'm not gonna act like English doesn't have loose rules. But anyways, despite that, it still doesn't have that pesky issue of having a special character in it. Now you might be thinking, kiddo, why not just put your name without the apostrophe and call it a day? And I mean, it's not like it's gonna change your name or your identity. And honestly, I did. That's not what bothered me the most though. This is. Please enter a valid name. Excuse me? I know whoever coded this up and made this has the awareness to know how offensive that is to say. I guess I'm not valid. Like, you really couldn't have worded it any way else? Like, people have had special characters in their names almost since we were first around. You have first names like Jean-Pierre or last names like O'Neill. What if my name wasn't Stephanie, but it was Steph-Annie? Shout out to the one person named Steph-Annie watching this. I'm sure there's a reason why they disallow certain characters. I'm guessing depending on the character, it can trigger certain things, or maybe it can make it harder to send things to the database. I don't know, I'm not a tech nerd. It's not a good user experience when you're prevented from using characters that are part of your name. And it's especially insulting to be told before you're forced to change it that your name is invalid. I'm gonna wrap this up by bringing up a comment I found on an article related to this. And it brings up such a good point. They said, if you work in tech or web development and you look at that error message and think, so what, her entry is clearly invalid according to the rules of the login form, then you are part of the problem. Some marketing team or manager or designer designed the form and told the programmer what to accept, a name in this field. If the programmer wasn't smart enough or competent enough to realize that not all names match the same pattern, that programmer needs education. And I agree. I think it's a matter of the programmer just not caring. Then again, it's also likely that they were only doing what they were told and whoever hired them was just ignorant or didn't care. But I still say the blame is on the programmer, because like, you know this stuff. So, I think that's all I have to say about names and the interesting foundation names have been built upon. Never let a program tell you that you or your name aren't valid, okay? Anywho, I have a matter to attend to. I noticed an army of guys holding signs saying Kyle's supremacy surrounding my house. I'm gonna be busy. See ya.